Hello and welcome to Calls. This is the 2023 Fortinet Data Dive Show. A lot to get into. Definitely won't have the elongated intro that I had last night, but I do want to remind you that I will have a full week of shows next week for the President's Cup. Sunday research, Monday data dive, Wednesday night DFS, and then Thursday will be a much more laid back show. My predictions, my lineup construction, or how I think the captains are going to run out the players, and so on and so forth. So hopefully you'll come join me for that. Chat had a lot of fun with it last year, just to think about strategy, and if you were a captain, how would you deploy your team and all that stuff. That show, Thursday night show, will be very, very late, probably around 11 p.m. Eastern, but just a reminder that I have a full week of shows planned for next week's President's Cup, and also a reminder and a thank you to everybody who came to Twitch today. It was a lot of fun. Didn't quite get to the Korn Ferry Tour grads, but we did a lot of research on the winners, which reminds me that I put that research out on Twitter and Instagram today. So if you haven't seen that, go find me on social media so you can see that research. But thanks to everybody who tuned in over at Twitch. It was a lot of fun. Hopefully more of you will come and join and hang out during the day. But with that, let's get into the real reason you're here, which is to dig into the data for the Fortinet. So all statistics provided today and tonight and every night are from fantasynational.com. It is the best tool out there. It's the best resource. It allows me to do what I do. Go check them out. It's well worth your investment. In the description to the video, there are links to all of my social media: Instagram, Twitter, Discord, and Twitch. So you can follow me at all of those places. On social media, specifically Instagram and Twitter, is where I put the research, kind of a Cliff Notes version. So if you want to see what I have found so far for this week's Fortinet, make sure you give me a follow there. And then Twitch is where I will be going very, very deep into the data to prepare for each show. Tomorrow I will be doing the Korn Ferry Tour grads. I had meant to get to today, didn't have a chance. I worked on the winter research before lunch, to where Twitch was active and such. I had meant to come back after lunch, and still getting back into the swing of a full week schedule reminded me that I had to edit the video from last night, so didn't have a chance to quite get into it. But I think I have started to really narrow down a time, in the sense that 10 a.m. roughly. It all kind of depends on when I wake up, get breakfast, all that good stuff. But I am thinking more so around 10 a.m. Eastern is when I'll be jumping on Twitch to do my research throughout the week. And it's not just for golf either. We can do some baseball, just kind of sit and chat about other things. One of the regulars and I had a fun conversation about getting old. So just come by, hang out, have a good time, and we'll do some math nerd stuff. And we'll probably also play a game or two, as I enjoy taking a break every once in a while, jumping in on a game and whatnot. So hopefully you think about joining me during the mornings. And then finally, we're live, chat's open. I want to hear from you all. How did you like the show last night? I am also changing some settings. I mentioned in the intro last night that a lot of things got kind of moved around, or reset, if you will, from me having to update and reboot my computer and install updates and whatnot. So let me know how you liked the settings last night compared to tonight. I made a few adjustments, so I would really, really appreciate the feedback on is the text better, worse, the camera setting, and let's see, anything else that I am forgetting. Probably. because I tend to forget a lot. Hopefully I'll remember by the end of the show. But let's go ahead and do what we're here for. Let's dig into the weeds of the data for the 2023 Fortinet. And we start with a little bit of a change in the sense that we're going to start with Microsoft Excel. And it was a trip down memory lane here about a year and a half ago. I started at the Memorial for 2021. And with the Fortinet being the first event of a PGA Tour season, the first full season I had shows were from last year. So what we're going to be doing is, or at least I'm going to be doing, and you're going to be laughing is what we're going to be doing. I will show you as a reminder of what my mixed condition model was for the same tournament the year prior. And this one, so you can see here, hopefully the text is legible and all that stuff. Like I said, please put it in the comments or jump in chat if the settings aren't user-friendly or hard to read and all that good stuff. But what you see here, this is essentially my mixed condition model. Tringali was number one in my rankings. This was his DFS price per DraftKings. That I play normally on DraftKings, or I play exclusively on DraftKings, I should say. That was their salary. This was my rankings based purely on the numbers. This was their projected ownership, blah, 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 the normal stuff. But this is where they finished in the tournament last year or the previous season. And then, especially during the fall, because of the Korn Ferry Tour guys, I had some other metrics that I wanted to look at but didn't put any percentage in. So this is the 0% over here. But as I was mentioning last night, I had a whole lot of emphasis, or I had the Korn Ferry Tour grads much higher in the rankings than I think I should have. And I probably mentioned that last year. Even though Nick Hardy had some rounds on the PGA Tour, I'm sure there weren't many, and he was 5th in my rankings. For example, Davis Riley, Taylor Moore, both of them were just outside the top 15. Ahead of guys like Hideki, you had Max McGreevy and Callum Tarrant way up here. That's why I was pretty adamant last night, and why I'm doing what I'm doing on Twitch, in taking these Korn Ferry Tour grads in a vacuum. And we're definitely going to be gathering the statistics, probably gathering them all, and then really focusing on the week statistics, say par 5s, 550 to 600, like we were doing last night, the par 4s, 400 to 450, so on and so forth. But coming back to why I'm starting here, this is last year's mixed condition model, so we can get a quick idea of how accurate I was. And I certainly do this throughout the year, and I will during the winter when there are no golf tournaments. I'll really do some critiquing. But this is a good kind of snapshot. And to be honest with you, I think I did okay. Now, John Rahm missed the cut. I don't think a lot of people expected that. Maybe I'll have to go back and look at the video. I actually probably said that, there's a good chance he would, because the Ryder Cup was the next week. Maybe that's wishful thinking on my end, trying to be Nostradamus, or hindsight 2020, either way. But honestly, I feel like I did okay. Like Taylor Gooch, top 5, he was 8th in my rankings. All of these guys, if they made the cut, were very, very high, or at least, middling finish, a top 30 from Webb, couple in the 14th and 15th range. The problem was I was way too low on Max Homa. He was 61st in my rankings. But a lot of the reason why I'm going to come back to last year's models and get a quick look, see if what I'm seeing from Fantasy National and how I interpreted the data last year, and see if it matches up to what I think this year's going to be. So for example, like Max Homa and Maverick McNeely, I was way too low on. So Max Homa, I had 15% in approach, but I was specific on less than 7,200. And I took that from the GCSA tournament fact sheet. I even mentioned it last night how I thought I was going to be focusing on short courses, and then saw on Fantasy National that the past 2 years have been between 7,200 and 7,400 yards. Now, I can't imagine it would be high into the 7,200s, but it's still not a short course defined by Fantasy National, so I'm not sure I want to have this filter or this filter. We're definitely not going to be looking at strokes gained total on short courses for sure. Definitely want to look at approach, but we had 15% in it. Is that too much? Maybe. Although Max Homa had been pretty good. Putting, I focused on POA last year, and I can explain that one easily. It's that 2021 was the first year that it had been classified as bent. POA every year since, so I thought 2021 was an outlier. Turns out that 2022 was also bent, so now with 2 straight years of bent, I'm starting to lean bent. Again, this is just 10% of a data model that I'm going to get back because I'm not going to use this metric. Strokes gained around the green, okay, I factored it in last year. Maybe need to do some more, maybe it's spot on, but I mentioned last night, Max Homa generally isn't a very good around the green player. He had a good week. He won. Maverick McNeely, not good with the irons, but he's a good putter on POA. He was good on short courses, decent enough around the green, had a good week. Good drives gained, I think, is going to be another metric that we're going to get back, essentially 10% back. I don't see this being a big factor. I put good drives gained when the fairway was difficult because these fairways are generally difficult to hit because guys don't care. It's not that they're difficult to hit and the guys are laying up. They just don't care. So this is a metric that I'm going to, do away with. I had 20% in par 4s, 10% in all the par 4s, 10% specifically in the 400 450, so I did factor this in. I'm going to put a whole lot more percent into this. I'm definitely going to take away this entire category, and then the same thing for the par 5s. But what I like to do here is, all right, so like Will Zalatoris, he was very good on all of them. Around the green, he was not the greatest, and it still played well. Like POA, he was putting well, and he played well. One of the examples I saw, like Charles Howell, he missed the cut, but he wasn't good on POA. But then you look at Siwoo, he's not good on POA, but he tied for 11th. Leishman's very good on POA, and then tied for 4th. So I was just trying to get a feel for, is it POA, is it bent, how much around the green, the par 4s, the par 5s, how much percentage did I put into them, and just get, again, an overall feel for how I performed at last year's Fortinet. And as we move through the year, you'll see that this is about a middling result, with the exception of Max Homa being too low, the winner being too low. But this is a fairly middling result. It's not awful by any means, but it's not great. Again, I had some pretty good performances here up in my rankings, and then I mentioned how even though he made the cut to 36, like Nick Hardy's way too high, Taylor Moore, Davis Riley are way too high, McGreevy, Taryn way too high. So I will be looking forward to showing you my updated formulas or way I'm going about my rankings on Wednesday night. And it'll definitely be a work in progress. In fact, I still don't have the formula done for one of the 3 criteria I'm putting in, but it'll give you a better idea of the totality of the process as opposed to just seeing Fantasy National's rankings by the numbers. Because you have to factor in ownership percentage, you have to factor in prior course performance, all that kind of stuff. So I'm looking forward to showing that to you. But in the comments or in chat, if you are watching live, let me know, do you like seeing last year's data model? Does that add any value for you? Seeing, how I did, the advice I was giving, what percentages and metrics that I was using, and how it played out. Would appreciate that feedback as well. I plan on doing this a little bit on each show, unless it is not, or enough feedback is given that it is not worthwhile for you all. I do this almost week to week, but I thought about starting the show tonight with a new season, adding a little bit more info, or a peek behind the curtain, if you will. But anyway, so that is the mixed condition model that I had last year. Definitely strokes gain approach, maybe 10%. Definitely going to take out that filter. Definitely not going to use this one at all. Not going to use this one at all. Probably need to keep around the green at 10, maybe even 15%. I'm starting to lean bent instead of POA, but 15% seems pretty good considering how important putting is here. Par 4s of the length, par 5s of the length. Not sure I'm going to want to put too much into individual par 5s. Because there's only one other par 5, and it's from 500 to 550. So I think I just need to put this percentage into here. Par 4s are a little different because you have the 350 to 400, and you've got one that's 450 to 500. So I might have to keep a little bit of this percentage if I want to keep total par 4s. But yeah, so there's a look at the mixed condition model from last year's Fortinet, and how I did essentially, not necessarily in terms of lineup constructions and all that stuff, but my rankings versus where they finished in the tournament. And no row here, 999 means they missed the cut. That was just my quick and easy way of denoting, or when I look, oh hey, Nick Hardy finished 36, Pat Perez missed the cut. So, all right, with that long-winded out of the way, I'm going to now, I guess I'll save just to make sure, because I don't know what I changed, if anything. All right, now we'll come back to Fantasy National and change the view there for you. All right, so last night we talked about easy, we talked about short, and we talked about bent. We're definitely, the more I thought about it, the more I'm leaning away from the short course narrative. And I'm thinking that because of this. The past 2 seasons, every single round has been 72 to 7,400. Then you've got, and it hasn't played less than 7,200 every year before that either. There's been times where it was longer. So I'm really starting to break away from the short course narrative. Having said that, I still think it's going to be playing easy. I don't know how much I'm going to put into the easy. Last year was 3 rounds of average. So, I'm going to do a little bit of the easy, but I'm not sure how much. Definitely going to be going on bent, and I mentioned it last night. I'll mention it again tonight. If these are classified as POA this year, I'll just be wrong, and that's why I'm not comfortable with bent and POA or Bermuda and POA type greens. It's kind of a guessing game. But just to do a little bit of review from last night, let's take a look at performance on easy courses, and we're going to have to expand this out to the last 6 months. I don't want to go back that far, but just to get enough rounds for these guys. I'm just gonna have to. So your top performers on easy or in easy rounds in the last 6 months. Those players are J.J. Spawn, Hideki, Mark Hubbard, Taylor Pendrith, Taylor Moore, Trey Mullinax, Cam Davis, Alex Noren, David Lipsky, and Davis Riley. I'm trying to make a mental note here. The bottom name you see here is Nate Lashley. So I'm trying to just get a mental note since I changed the settings of where I'm looking, what you can see. And because I see his name here, Dean Burmester, there has been one field change that I have seen. Dean Burmester has withdrawn. Kevin Chappell replaces him in the field. Now, I believe Kevin Chappell is loaded into Fantasy National. I'll check that here in a second, but I do know Dean Burmester has withdrawn. Let me double check that for you real quick. Let's take a look for Chappie. Kevin Chappell, yep, so he is in there. So anytime we see Dean Burmester, we'll have to toss him out. He's not playing. But there you go. There's a look at the top performers in the past 6 months in easy rounds. Let's take a look at bent grass putting. And we know that these are going to be average speed greens. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to look at average speed greens in general. I'll look at bent, but I won't be able to combine the two because you do not have enough rounds in the past 6 months. 4 rounds from average speed bent greens. If you go into the last 12 months, I think it's 10. So I'm going to look individually, bent greens, average speed greens, and we'll try to get a feel for who is up near the top on both of those lists. So your top putters on bent greens in the past 6 months: Denny McCarthy, Brendan Todd, Justin Lauer, Austin Cook, Bo Hostler, Max Homa, Maverick McNeely, Patrick Rogers, Chesson Hadley, Callum Tarrant, and Vince Whaley. Alex Noren, always very good on bent. Adams Vincent has putt bent very well. Andrew Putnam, James Hahn, Mark Hubbard. These are names that, one, aren't a surprise. Two, we're going to try to get a mental snapshot of as we go to average speed greens here. So again, I'm trying to take a quick mental snapshot of that. Let's take a look at average speed greens in the same time period in the past 6 months. And we're also going to try to get a feel for what style of greens these are, whether they're Bermuda, POA. Valero is definitely Bermuda. These are Bermuda. That's Paspalum. That's Paspalum. So I don't see many bent in here. Valero, definitely Bermuda at San Antonio. That's from Bill Hawes at Wyndham Clark. Same thing here, the same exact rounds. Vajegas. Barbasol is bent. Okay. So that's one entire tournament of average speed bent greens, but do you want to put a whole ton of focus on one tournament? I don't. So that's why I can't combine bent and average. So in the past 6 months, your top average speed green putters are Troy Merritt, Matt Kuchar, Doc Redmond, Chris Stroud, Brandon Wu, Richie Wierenski, Justin Lauer, Martin Trainer, Kelly Kraft, and Bo Hostler. So right off the bat, I just recognized one name. Justin Lauer was top 10 in both. Matt Kuchar was high in the bent. He wasn't in the top 10. He might have been in the top 15. You see down here, Chesson Hadley, Vince Whaley. These guys are top 20 in average. They were top 10 in bent putting. So those are a few names that jump out. Denny McCarthy, Adams Vincent are pretty darn good on average speed greens. But I think it is more appropriate to just look at bent. Because if you know the surface, you can adjust for speed, generally speaking. Or at least these guys can. They're pros. Me, I can't. So I think it's more appropriate to look at bent putting, bent green putting, as opposed to the average speed green putting. So there is your list of top 10 bent green putters in the past 6 months. But I think that's going to do it for, well, I think. Let's do stroke gain approach and stroke gain around the green. And I'm definitely going to narrow this into the last 3 months because I don't have any filters. No filter, so just pure strokes gain approach and strokes gain around the green. So in the past 3 months, your top strokes gained approach players: Corey Connors, Chez Reavie, Lee Hodges, Mark Hubbard, Alex Smalley, Chesson Hadley, Stefan Yeager, Chris Goddard, Brendan Steele, and Taylor Pendrith. So a name like Chesson Hadley has been here on the putting, now on the approach. I'm trying to see here anyone else like Svensson. Svensson's been here, the approach and the putting. Luke List is comical anytime you talk about putting. So I think really those two are the only ones that are combining the strokes gained approach and the strokes gained putting on bent. Now let's take a look at strokes gained around the green. And we saw last night, we saw when I went through my mixed condition model from last year, how much emphasis strokes gained around the green is here at Silverado. So your top 10 strokes gained around the green players in the past 3 months. There you go. Camilo Villegas, Andrew Putnam, Scott Piercy, Vince Whaley, Bill Haas, Kevin Tway, Martin Laird, Cameron Percy, Stefan Yeager, and Max Homa. Max Homa has been good around the green lately, and he's generally not. But that is a part of the game that he is either very, very hot right now, like riding a hot putter, although he's generally a good putter, or if this is indeed the new Max Homa, we need to adjust, because there was a time where he was not good. I mean, you see, career-wise, he's career negative, but in the last 20, good. Last 10, very good. Last 5, elite. So if this is indeed a new Max Homa, we need to readjust. But he's been very good lately around the green. So these other players, let's see. Whaley is combining the putting and the around the green. Putnam's doing the same. Homa was, I think he was okay at the bent. I don't think he was high or in the top 10, but I think he was okay. But I don't see much else here in terms of around the green and putting. If you're talking approach and around the green, like Martin Laird, Party Marty, Stefan Yeager's top 10 in both. Streelman's just outside the top 10 in both. Okay. Cam Davis, top 15 in both. So good stuff to look at there. But I think that's going to do it for the review, if you will, from last night. Let's go straight into the birdies and bogeys. And we had a little bit of discussion last night around birdies and bogeys. And the more I came to look at it and think about it, the more I am going to do birdies or better. Because I mentioned last night that there didn't seem to be a lot in the Eagles, like Michael Gligic. For whatever reason, I just saw these 999s and I kind of dismissed it. Look at the guys who actually had a lot of Eagles. Because they were getting birdies too. Homa, McNeely, Mito, 1, 2, 3. And they were avoiding the bogeys well enough. So I'm going to be doing the birdies or better. And I needed to clarify that tonight because towards the end of it I said I was probably just going to look at birdies. It's going to be birdies or better because of that. I mean, even Stallings, 6th. So, yeah, that's that is me correcting a mistake. Although it's not that bogeys avoided aren't important. They obviously are. But you have much higher numbers in the birdies gained up at the top of the leaderboard, as opposed to a higher number in the bogeys avoided. So, in fact, I mentioned last night, let's go ahead and take a look at a couple previous years, see if we're seeing the same thing here. Eyeball test says yes, and especially look at this. You have to come down to a tie for 36th here before you get a negative in terms of birdies gained. So your top was a 9.3. You got a lot of single digits in here. Bogeys avoided was a 7.9. You got very strong finishes, but you didn't have a missed cut this high. You also have quite a few double-digit finishes. So 2021 was also about birdies. A little bit less extent on the Eagles, but still enough, like Ventura, Higgs. Let's do 2020, just to round it out. Nice little 3-year sample here. This one looks a bit more even. Birdies 7.1. You got a few of them here, and then bogeys 7.2. Yeah, so it seems even. Yeah, that's fair. Again, I'm leaning birdies over bogeys, is what that is amounting to. So, your top birdies or better gained players in the past 3 months, no other metrics. Your top birdies or better players: Cam Davis, Adams Vinson, Trey Mullinax, Taylor Pendrith, Taylor Moore, Emiliano Grillo, Nick Hardy, John Huh, Maverick McNeely, and Scott Piercy. I mentioned last night, like, I would be wary of players like Nick Hardy and Maverick McNeely because they aren't giving themselves a lot of opportunities, yet are converting them at a very high rate, meaning that, eventually they're going to not give themselves opportunities, so it doesn't matter what their conversion rate is. I looked at the thing at my mixed condition model last year, and it kind of seemed like birdies are better or birdies gained kind of didn't matter with the opportunities, especially around the research that I did with the winners today as well. That winners, Max Homa last year, Sink in 2021, 2020 was Champ, Tway in 19, Steele in 18 and 17. These guys they didn't even have good form coming in for birdies or opportunities. They just kind of had a good week in that regard. So with that in mind, I'm going to be much more, I guess the word is lenient, on players like Nick Hardy and Mav McNeely. I'm certainly going to take this into effect or into consideration. It'll be used as a tiebreaker per se. Like if I'm between McNeely and Grillo, McNeely and Huh, all things equal, because I know they're not going to be the same price. But all other things being equal, I'm going to use John Huh over Maverick McNeely because of this. But McNeely and Hardy, Gligic, Justin Lauer, these guys, I'm not going to dock them as much as I normally would. I am going to take a wait and see approach and see if I need to readjust how I'm looking at opportunities and birdies are better, birdies and bogeys and whatnot. So I'm definitely going to keep it in the back of my mind, but Hardy's 7th and birdies are better, so he's going to rise in my rankings because of that. Simply put. But definitely wanted to look at this. Do we want to add any filters? Maybe birdies are better when it's easy. Maybe. Again, nothing to do with Architect. I looked at the wind. There does not look to be any wind, but I'll definitely update it Wednesday for the DFS Tactics show. But the early forecast shows very little wind. Again, I'm gun shy on the course length now, just because of what we've seen the past 2 years. So let's take a look at birdies are better when scoring is easy, because this has trended towards being an easier tournament over the years. I'm gonna have to expand this out to the 6 months so we get enough rounds for players. But your top birdies are better game players when a round is easy in the past 6 months. Those players are Hideki, Alex Noren, Davis Riley, Troy Merritt, Trey Mullinax, JJ Spawn, Emiliano Grillo, Adam Svensson, Taylor Moore, and Cameron Champ. So a little bit of overlap here. Grillo, Taylor Moore, I believe, was top 10. Trey Mullinax makes a whole lot of sense. He won the Barbasol. Easy. Very easy course. So that makes a whole lot of sense. I'm actually curious to see what he did at the Barbasol in regards to birdies are better. Oh, yeah. Look at that. That's very, very good. He didn't get a lot of eagles, but certainly the birdies were there. He gave himself enough opportunities. Okay. He also avoided bogeys. So that makes a whole lot of sense here. See other players with a lot of rounds. Svensson seems like it would make sense. Okay, so yeah, I forgot he played the Barbasol last year. The Rocket Mortgage is generally easy. The John Deere is easy. Okay. All right. So good info to look at there. I'm not sure if I'm going to put the easy filter on my mixed condition model this year in regards to birdies are better, because I'm definitely going to be using birdies are better for my final mixed condition model Wednesday. But it's something that I'm considering. I think this would be the only filter I'm considering, but it's something in the back of my mind. Let's see. Let's take a look at some prior leaderboards in terms of fairways and greens. And again, I just don't see much on this page view. I did good drives gained last year, if you'll remember from the beginning of the show of my mixed condition model from last year. I did good drives gained. And while Mito had a very strong performance, you look at the rest of these, this is the top 21, conveniently for ties. Still can't see all of them, can you? Nope. Do I have the web page on? I do. Sorry. I guess I need to change that setting. Let me see if I can fix that just very, very quickly. I apologize. Let me see if I can finagle this. That's a very technical term, finagle. There we go. There's a little bit better. Again, please put it in the comments or put it in chat if you're watching. How is the quality of the settings? Are you able to see everything? Is it scrunched? Is it blown up? Whatever. Because I was trying to work on that today, plus do some research and all that stuff with my settings having been reset. But anyway, coming back to this page view in Fantasy National, like Mito had a very good tournament in good drives gained. Will Zalatoris, there wasn't a lot here. There really wasn't a lot. And you just see, there are, other than Mito, there are no single digit finishes in the top, 12 to 13 here. Augustine had a good tournament in terms of good drives, but all of that's in greens. Mito and Jim Herman, they were, well, to be fair, Mito was fairways and greens. Like, if we sort just on the leaderboard, let's go to the top 21 again. Hopefully you can see all of them this time. You got Burgoon. Okay, so there's Varner. Varner's down here at the very bottom. A good drives gained. The top, what's this? 9 of the top 10 were positive, but only one had a very, very high number. Greens, again, there's still quite a bit of negative in here. Fairways, quite a bit of negative. Negative 10 from Patrick Rogers, negative 11 from Bo Hostler, and yet they are top 20 in this tournament. So I just don't see much in this page view. Distance. Now all of these guys are positive in distance, but they're not astronomically high numbers. Yeah, I mean, Will Zalatoris was your top finisher here. Okay, Bo Hostler was a top 20. The Will Zalatoris, Mito, Patrick Rogers. Like I don't see a whole lot here. I just don't. I don't see a whole lot here. If there is anything, I think it might be greens, but even then, I'm not very confident in it. So I'm probably just going to skip this entire page view, to be honest with you. So let's move to par threes and go into this real quick. Here's 2022. We looked at 2022. 175 to 200 was decent in terms of correlation. The more I looked at it, the more par threes actually did have a fair amount of correlation, other than, like Nick Hardy was a middling, Jim Herman was a middling, but you had some pretty good correlation up here at the top. Let's look at a couple of prior years. Maybe last year's was an outlier. So your winner, Stuart Sink, was immaculate at the par threes. But you had quite a few missed cuts up here at the top in previous years with par threes. 175 to 200. But they were still okay here. 2020, par threes. So again, it looks a lot of green here, but a lot of these are 0.3s, 1.3s. I don't see a lot here. I really don't. 175 to 200. Not really. The only other one on the scorecard is this one. It doesn't have a whole lot of high number in it either. So, if anything, I really don't think I'm going to put anything in par threes. Maybe 5% in 175 to 200. So, because of that, your top par three performers from 175 to 200 yards in the past 3 months. You got Robert Streb, Cam Davis, Hideki, Max Homa, Chris Stroud, Chesson Hadley, David Lipsky, Taylor Moore, Doc Redman, Lee Hodges, and Ryan Armour. So you're getting a few names here that are popping up consistently. Yes, Max Homa is the defending champ. Has just generally been playing well the past 2 years. Chesson Hadley has been on a lot of these metrics. Taylor Moore has been on a lot of these metrics. Alex Noren has been lurking outside the top 10 on a lot of these metrics. Thinking specifically on the bent putting, now the par 3 lengths. So, interesting to see that. But again, I'm not going to put a whole lot of weight into the par 3s. Maybe 5% in the 175 to 200. This is what I want to look at, because we looked at the comparison course file last night, and the 350 to 400 also had a pretty high number in regards to importance compared to other full field events. You see here, like Max Homa destroyed both of those lengths last year. There are 3 on the scorecard that measure here, 6 here, and 1 here. So par 4s, pretty darn strong until you get to here. This is very strong, but in terms of par 4 importance, this is actually pretty weak. So very top heavy. Let's look. The short par fours. You got a couple of bad performances. Like he wasn't very good. Doug Gim wasn't very good at the most important length. And then these guys were negative in terms of the important length. Okay. But you see the guys that played well on both of them. In fact, I'm just going to sort on the leaderboard. Like, he played well on both of the lengths of the par fours. I imagine Maverick McNeely had something else going on. Like Mito, even though he didn't play the short ones good, he played the most important range exceptionally well. Very good on both. Very good on both. Let's see, 5, 7.7. Like you can see the strong correlation here. Kind of falls off after that, but pretty strong. Let's look at 2021. Do the same thing here. Yeah, just quite a bit on the par fours. I think this is why I was doing the par fours and the 400 to 450. I'll probably do it again, but I'm going to put a little more emphasis on the par fours, 400 to 450 this year than I did last year. Although those three aren't the best in terms of correlation. Okay, 350 to 4. This one's a little stronger, I would say. 5, 8.9. Okay. So still a combination of the two. Then we go to 2020 and par fours. Yeah, look at your winner here. He was all in the par fours, 400, 450. Same for your runner-up. There's just a lot more higher numbers here in the 400, 450. You got a 7. I mean, that's pretty strong there. Even the top 7 here are pretty strong. You got a miscut from John Hunt and then some more really good finishes. Sebastian Munoz is middling. Whereas here, a lot of higher double digits. So, still thinking 400, 450. I don't think you can ignore all of the other par fours. So I'll probably have some kind of percentage in strokes gained par 4 total, but it's definitely going to be a focus on this. Because of that, actually, let me go into 2022 real quick. Because of that, we'll take a look at par 4s of players in the field this week at the Fortinet. Your top strokes gained par 4 players that are also top 10 in 400 to 450. So they have to be in top 10 in both. You got Chesson Hadley, first and fourth. Corey Connors, second in total, first in the specific length. Andrew Putnam, fourth and fourth. Svensson, sixth and second. Tyler Duncan, eighth and third. Okay. Probably a little bit of an honorable mention here for Taylor Moore, 9th and 18th. So he's popped on a whole lot. Svensson's starting to pop more too. There's Chesson Hadley. So I mean, we've had Taylor Moore, we've had Chesson Hadley, we've had Emiliano Grillo quite a few times. Let's see. Honorable mention here for Ben Griffin, although he needs to have an asterisk next to his. He's only got 4 rounds on the PGA Tour. Cameron Percy, 17th and 4th. All right. So there's some names to look at for par 4s. I'm going to go ahead and bring up the par 5s. We're going to look at this view very quickly, and then I do want to cover the proximity. So might be running over on time a little bit again tonight, but hopefully that is okay and you're comfortable getting your math nerd on. Last year, you can see all of the weight in par 5s are here. So other than Michael Gligic, who actually took advantage of the short par 5 quite a bit, I mean, a lot of strong correlation here. A lot of strong correlation here. I mean, yes, Chris Stroud missed the cut. Gligic clunker. The highest number here was Gligic at 4.2. This is 5.9 and a whole lot more bevy of high finishes. So, at least in 2022, it was 550 to 600. We go to 2021 and par fives. Surprisingly, Sink was poor in all of the par fives, but you see like Harry Higgs, second, all of his in the 550 to 600. Streelman was mediocre at both, but higher more so here. So let's take a look. 1.7 is the top versus 6.9. That's pretty telling for me in of itself. So par fives again. There's MJ DeFew, I think is how you say it, and Scott Piercy missed a cut, but some more high finishes surrounding them. So par five definitely important. And let's look at 2020 par fives. So surprising, like Champ. I mean, he took advantage of both, but it was more so the 500 to 550. Same for Leishman. Same for Zach Blair. So this one might actually be an outlier, maybe. Again, the par fives are pretty strong. Your highest number here, 3.9, 5.2. Yeah. So here's where it's starting to tell. You've got two missed cuts that finished very high in terms of playing the 500 to 550 par fives well. You got some good finishes, don't get me wrong, but missed cuts, middling finishes. Whereas 550 to 600, you don't have a missed cut until you come down here to Heinrich Norlander. And your top, I'm going to guess 20, were all middling finishes or better. So I'm pretty confident it's going to be 550 to 600 par fives. So because of that, we're just going to go straight into this length of par fives. Your top performers on par fives, 550 to 600 yards in the past 3 months: Emiliano Grillo, Callum Tarrant, Cam Davis, Brandon Wu, Patrick Rogers, Cameron Champ, Mark Hubbard, Luke List, Adam Schenk, Gary Woodland, and Kevin Streelman. So a whole brand new list of names, really. Don't think we've said Brandon Wu tonight. I think we may have said Callum Tarrant once. Mark Hubbard, he was there for putting, I think. But like Gary Woodland, we haven't said. Kevin Streelman, we haven't said much. First time I think we've said Taylor Pendrith. So interesting stuff here around the par fives. The last thing I want to look at in Fantasy National, I really do want to look at proximity. I mentioned last night we were going to dig heavily into it, so let's do that. Let me bring up proximity for this year's field. All right, so last year, like Max Homa's total prox was not good. It wasn't terrible, but it wasn't good. He was very good with his wedges. So again, using that same tie for 21st, or top 21 players, convenient for ties. Let's see, Bo Hostler. So yeah, you've got Bo Hostler down here at the bottom. It's off the screen. But otherwise, let's see what we got here. You got quite a few positives in terms of the 75 to 100. And you really only have one huge negative from Taylor Gooch. Okay. 100 to 125 is kind of spotty, kind of hit and miss. 125 to 150 doesn't look strong correlation at all. You actually had quite a bit here in the 200 plus, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense at all, unless that's factoring in the par fives. That could be factoring in the par fives too. But even so, like Max Homa destroyed the par fives. He wasn't very good at the 200 plus. So, I know McNeely was very good at Eagles, so this actually would make sense for McNeely. Okay. Mito, I believe, was good on the par five, or no, good at the Eagles. Scott Stallings was good at the Eagles. Okay. Let's take a look at 2021, but as of right now, it looked like the 75 to 100 was the strongest individual length of proximity. 2021 proximity. This is the top 22, convenient for ties. Let's see. You've got Sepp Straka. So you've got Tagala and Doug Gim that are getting cut off of the screen here. Doug Gim is actually pretty good at the 125 to 150. So I'll try to keep that in mind. Otherwise, again, the 75 to 100 seems fairly strong. You got a decently high negative here and a very high negative here. But other than that, like the negatives are pretty close to field average. 100 to 125 is very strong in 2021. Very strong. You got, what, 1 negative, 2 negatives. And then these down here are slightly less than field average. So 100 to 125 is very strong correlation in 2021. 125 to 150, kind of hit and miss. 175 to or 150 175 seems strong too this year. This is why I fully admit, like, I have problems with proximity. I do. I know it's important. In some tournaments, like the Arnold Palmer, you just look at 200 plus approaches for the Arnold Palmer. It's a long course, etc., etc. This is why I have a problem as a statistician, as a data analyst at proximity, because it's seemingly random. I have not figured out the pattern for it yet. But in 2022, last year's was 75 to 100. 2021 looks like it's the 100 to 125. So maybe 2020 breaks the tie, or maybe it puts an entirely new range in there and I just flip my desk and give up. But again, I'm seeing like proximity, total prox doesn't seem to be it. That's what I'll say. I'm going to keep it at the top 14 so you all can see every single person that I'm highlighting here. Like 2020, 75 to 100 isn't it at all. Other than these two, you didn't have a whole lot of high negative from the 100 to 125. Okay. 125 to 150 again is fairly strong. I'd be curious. Put it in the comments. What do you think about proximity? I'm starting to lean in the 100 to 125, 125 to 150 range in terms of importance. But I'm starting to think it's the 100. I'm starting to think it's these two. 100 to 150 broken out. And that would make some sense in terms of approaches here. Like the 100 to 125 is the most common approach shot in relation to the average PGA Tour event here at the Fortinet. Okay. Regardless, it's going to be one of you're going to want to focus on the short proximities or the short approach shot proximities. I do know that. So, in the past 3 months, making sure there's no other filters, I'm going to do the 100, 125, and 125, 150. See what we kind of get there. So in the past 3 months, your top performers on approach shots from 100 to 125 yards. You got Cam Davis, Ches Reavie, Austin Cook, David Lingmerth, Wyndham Clark, Max McGreevy, Camilo Villegas, Matt Wallace, Brian Stewart, and Martin Laird. If you factor in the 125 to 150, Cameron Davis, 1st and 11th, is very strong. Max McGreevy, 6th and 10th. Matt Wallace, 7th and 15th. Okay. Now, if you come back down the other way, the really only person that qualifies in terms of 75 to 100 and 100 to 125 is Matt Wallace. You do have, Adam Svensson's good there, Lucas Glover's good there. But in terms of all three of the short ones, short approach shots, it's Matt Wallace, I'd probably consider Max McGreevy. Top 45 isn't great, but when it's your worst one, you accept it. Like Camilo Villegas is top 50 in all three. It's not terrible. Austin Cook's just outside the top 50 on all of them. Like 51st and then 3rd and 37th. Okay. Svensson. I don't know if I mentioned Svensson. Here's a good one. Ben Griffin. Again, put an asterisk next to it. It's only 4 rounds, but he has shown the propensity to be good with wedges. Russell Knox is top 40 in all three. He's not elite in any of them, but he's top 40 in all three. Kelly Craft is top 40 in all three. Almost top 30 in all three. Okay. Huh. Again, would be interested to hear what you all think in terms of proximity, but I am leaning towards, I know it's not going to be total procs. If I do a proximity in the final mixed condition model, it's going to be 100 to 125, I think, is going to be in there. Whether or not I include this one or this one is up for debate, but I'm pretty sure I'm going to have the 100 to 125 in there. I'm feeling okay about putting that one in there. So that's going to do it for the Fantasy National portion. I am going to bring back the comparison course before we go. I realize that I go from, I'm sorry, this is just funny for me. I go from a decent sized human being and then I come to Excel and mini me. So that's a setting I'm going to have to change, but there you go. You can have some fun with that. Again, going purely on the course data detail, like it's important to look and see if we have some outliers here really quickly. Let's see, that's an average of 2.64. So like last year, actually it looks like driving distance was an outlier in terms of the negative. Distance maybe could be thought about. Maybe. Might have to do some of that on Twitch. So if you're interested, drop by on Twitch. I'll be looking at that, I guess, a little bit. Fairways, it's definitely not, because this is a high outlier. Because if you remove that, it becomes a 1.2. So not important at all. Good drives gained. Looks like last year might be an outlier. 2.88 drops it to 2.67. Okay. Oh yeah, look at this. Greens is a very low outlier. Drops it 0.4 of a point. Maybe greens. Still not confident in it. Birdies. Oh yeah. Look at this. We saw that birdies were kind of a little bit ahead of bogeys. Look at this. You remove this one from 2019. Bow. 3.25. So right now, in the full course evaluation, let me go over to the birdies. That's negative 0.22. You remove this outlier, it becomes a quarter of a shot more important instead of a quarter of a shot less important. Boy, that is good that we found that. You always got to check for outliers. So I'm definitely going to be looking at birdies now. Huge over the bogeys. I mean, to be fair, this is a low outlier too. Evaluation, but it only goes to about course average. That one jumps a full half a shot, quarter negative to quarter positive. That's big. Let's see. Specifically in these par 3s, 4s, and 5s, do we have any outliers here? 175 to 200. Not really. It's just kind of there. I'm curious to see the par 4s. Pretty solid in terms of consistency. Like it's just 400 to 450 here. It just is. It's very consistent. It's the highest. It's 400, 450. Par 5s. Not really a big outlier here. oh, we saw that 500 to 550 looked like it could be important. 2020, we looked at it. This is a high outlier. You remove it, it becomes less important. So you look here, what the heck? Negative 0.2 when you remove the outlier. If you add it, so, but you still see very important, very important. I am curious to see, to wrap up the show, to look at some proximities here. So, data detail, let's look at these proximities. Do we have any big outliers? Like this is actually fairly consistent. Big outliers, not really. Oh yeah, look at this. Okay, this makes me feel a whole lot better. Look at this. This is the only negative, and it's a negative by a bunch in terms of 100 to 125. And 100 to 125 still positive in terms of importance, but let's remove that outlier. Oh yeah. Oh yeah, so now I'm really going to be putting some 100 to 125 approach shot in there. I like that a lot. Finding that outlier. Like that's a big outlier in terms of positive. I think I mentioned that when we were in Fantasy National, that 150 to 175 was strong in 2021. So that's an outlier. And it goes down quite a bit. So yeah, I'm glad we looked at these outliers, because that makes it seem a whole lot more prudent to look at 100 to 125. Let's see, what else was a big outlier that we saw? The birdies. Birdies was a big outlier. Greens might be an outlier. Maybe we need to take a look at some greens throughout the week. Could be something that we don't want to overlook. Let's see, good drives, maybe, but I mean, really, putting has always been very consistent. Around the green has been consistent. It doesn't look like it, but when you have 3 years right at each other, you have 2 years right at each other, it's pretty darn close. Approach, kind of the same thing. Off the tee, kind of the same thing. So a lot of putting, a lot of around the green, especially compared to other courses. 0.28, 0.3. So tomorrow on Twitch, I'm going to be looking at the Korn Ferry Tour guys, making sure I consider them. I have them separated in their own kind of bucket, and then any of those players that I'm going to, kind of think about putting in a lineup, I'll include in my overall rankings. But honestly, I think my rankings are just going to be players that have, a certain amount of rounds on the PGA Tour until these guys get data. I think is probably the way I'm going to approach it. But I'll make sure I mention some of the Korn Ferry Tour guys that I think might play well at the Fortinet, and then in 2 weeks at the Sanderson Farms, and et cetera, et cetera. But until they start getting some rounds under the belt, I have to treat them as if they have no data. And how I treat players with no data, I just don't consider them. As a statistician, if you don't have data, I can't analyze you. Let's see. But yeah, Twitch, I'll be doing that. I'll be doing the Korn Ferry Tour guys. I'll be kind of working on my mixed condition model and trying to finalize, do I want to consider greens now that we saw an outlier? How much do I want to put into the 100 to 125 proximity now that we saw that outlier and that it was already somewhat important? All of that good stuff. So again, please reach out in the comments or on social media. How was the video quality or the video settings? Could you read the data? Could you see it? Have a little bit of fun with the web page to Excel focus, and where I'm a giant and I'm tiny. That's pretty funny. I didn't realize it until now. But yeah, I think that's going to be it for the show tonight. I really do hope I see you on Twitch. But reminder, Wednesday night is the DFS Tactics show. And then I will start prepping for the President's Cup for next week. So thanks for tuning in and watching. I really appreciate all the support. I thank you all for the messages, the kind messages of welcoming me back, wishing me happy belated birthdays and all that good stuff. I really do appreciate it. That's why I enjoy having built the community that I have, that we can all have fun. A lot of times at my expense, but that's fine. But we all can have fun and enjoy trying to win some money. And hopefully I give you some good advice and good things to look at throughout the week as you continue your research. So thanks again for all the support. For any of the wagers you've made so far this week at the Fortinet, for any of the wagers you're thinking about making this week at the Fortinet, and until I see you Wednesday night for the DFS Tactics show, may all your bets be profitable.